Kamala Harris' marketing camp posted this. 7 years ago today, white supremacists and neo-Nazis marched on Charlottesville chanting racist and anti-Semitic bile and killing an innocent woman. This is who Donald Trump calls very fine people. So let me break down this whole Trump very fine people hoax. And for those of you that don't know, a hoax is a deliberate trick or deception meant to fool people into believing something that is not true. Because if you have Snopes, which is quite left-leaning, fact-checking that no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people, that is something to consider. And liberal media such as the Washington Post have published pieces like this very, very lengthy one, trying to unfact-check what Snopes did. But 99% of the article is basically confirming what everybody knows, that no, Donald Trump was not referring to neo-Nazis and white supremacists. All they can do is cast a shadow of doubt using these 4 lines. The Washington Post reported August 10th that there would be a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville. Does someone who attends a white nationalist rally deserve rhetorical distance from white nationalism? Well, here's the thing. The rally was just called Unite the Right of People with a Permit to protest the taking down of a statue. The label White Nationalist Rally was given by the Washington Post themselves. So, 7 years after this happened, the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, and now Kamala Harris keep using Trump's words out of context to push a narrative that did not happen. That's why a breakdown is still necessary, because this video might be useful to send to those family members and friends that still believe this lie. So here it goes. In August 2017, in Charlottesville, Virginia, there was this rally called Unite the Right about protesting the removal of Robert E. Lee statue. This rally brought out all sorts of people. You had people from the city who just didn't want this statue taken down because it was part of the city's image, tradition, and culture. That is normal. But you also had white nationalists and neo-Nazis mixed in. The night before, this racist group marched through the University of Virginia campus with torches shouting racist stuff. It got violent when they clashed with counter-protesters. And the next day was even worse. Antifa and Black Lives Matter were there too. It was such a mess that Charlottesville declared a state of emergency. Then this white supremacist guy drove his car onto a crowd of counter-protesters, killing a woman and hurting many others. Really awful stuff.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch.
So Trump had to say something, right? His first statement condemned the, quote, hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. People got upset because he didn't specifically call out the white supremacists. A couple days later, he tried again and actually named the KKK, the neo-Nazis and white supremacists, calling them repugnant.
Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
But then he had this press conference that really stirred things up. He repeated his condemnation of white supremacists, but also said there were very fine people on both sides. That's when things blew up. People started saying that Trump was equating white supremacists with peaceful protesters.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Now, here's where the hoax originated and Trump's words were spliced out of all that he said. He actually said, I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally.
So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
He was trying to say he thought some people weren't neo-Nazis or white supremacists, just regular folks who didn't want the statue taken down. But for reasons that you can easily imagine, when the majority of journalists from the mainstream media reported on what he said, they left that last part out.
There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit.
This whole thing took on a life of its own after that, and Trump's opponents ran with this idea that he'd call white supremacists fine people. It became a big talking point. Joe Biden even used it to kick off his presidential campaign in 2020 and repeated it just a couple weeks ago. He said Trump was making a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. It became this huge thing that people used to criticize Trump's whole presidency. Now, let me break down what Trump actually said in that press conference a bit more. He was talking about the people who were there to protest the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue. He said, you had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. Then he went on to say, I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists. This is a part that often got left out when people talk about his comments. Trump was trying to make a distinction between the violent extremists and other people who were there for different reasons. He thought there were some regular people there too who just care about preserving historical monuments or whatever. Whether you agree with that or not, that's what he was trying to say. And this whole thing has been pretty useful for Trump's opponents. It's like the perfect soundbite. Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. It's short, it's shocking, and it sticks in people's heads. Even if it's not what he said, it's easy to repeat and share. And it's been used to question Trump's judgment and character. If they can convince people that he couldn't even clearly condemn neo-Nazis, it makes him look unfit for office. And the timing of it all has been pretty convenient for them as well. Because whenever there's a racial issue in the news, they can bring this up again to show that it's part of a pattern. It doesn't matter if it happened years ago. They can always tie it back to current events. The persistence of this story, even after fact-checkers try to clear things up, shows that once an idea takes hold, it can be really hard to change people's minds. Even when you show them the full transcript or explain the context, some people will stick to their original understanding of what happened. And it's not just about Trump or Charlottesville. This whole thing raises bigger questions about how we consume news and form opinions. It's about how narratives get created and spread. And in a world where we are bombarded with information all the time, it's getting harder and harder to figure out what's really true. But now you know how some are just taking things out of context and keep talking things out of context for their own advantage 7 years later. But I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Body Language Guy. Much love and bliss.